Some of you have written to
28
me
years.
asking
They
for a
kept
tutorial on
going
some of the
and
animations that
going
appear in Cleo
until
Abram's
after
videos. As she
here,
tells a story,
Diamond
the
moves
animations accompany
better
the
than almost
narration,
any
visually
temperature rises
displaying the
over
information, which
1300
makes her
degrees
videos
Celsius.
much more
Something
dynamic,
weird starts to
entertaining,
happen. So
and
multiply by
moreover,
7 is
very
not a real
viral.
thing.
In one of
no
her
one cares about
Instagram
that.
reels,
One is
I
the
saw
same
this
as a human
animated
at
graph,
7 and at 2
and
they're
besides
14.
looking great,
So
it's
here, a
very
dog at
versatile.
1 is equivalent.
You can use it in explainer videos, documentaries, and many other formats, easily adapting it to any type of content. The best thing about these charts is that we can edit and customize them in just a few minutes, easily adapting them to the needs of each project. We can adjust the animation timing, define the percentage of movement we want it to cover, and even completely modify its appearance without having to redo the animation from scratch. For example, we can make it display peaks instead of curves. We can also make that same line, instead of peaks, a progressively ascending straight line. The important thing is that all these changes are applied flexibly, and the chart will continue to function perfectly, displaying the exact data at every moment. If you'd like to support the channel, in addition to your likes, you can also become a member of the Motion Graphics Zone on Patreon. There I share all the projects and materials I use in my tutorials, among other things, so you can continue practicing and improving your motion design skills. I've included the link in the description if you'd like to check it out. The first thing I'll do is import this image of the footprint. Now I'm going to create a composition called Line Chart, 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames, and 10 seconds is enough. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it, but I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. With the rectangle tool, I'm going to create a shape like this, with no fill and a 5-pixel stroke. I'll go into the rectangle's options, and by right-clicking, I'll convert it to a Bezier curve. With the pen tool, I'll click on this point, hold down the Alt key, and select both points. Right-click on one of them and uncheck the closed option. I'll delete this point as well. I'll center the anchor point and center it in the viewport as well. I'll create another composition, 1000 by 1000 pixels, and this will be the one we use to place the image we want. I'll double-click on the ellipse tool, remove the stroke, and choose a color. Now I'll place my image here and adjust the scale. Perfect. Let's continue. We return to the main composition and bring in the footprint layer. We'll scale it because it's too large. With no layer selected, we use the pen tool to create an arc like this. Don't worry about its shape though, because it will be a fully responsive animation. We remove the fill and give it a 5-pixel stroke. We rename the layer, expand the options, and select the path. Now we'll open the Create Nulls from Paths script. And of the 3 options, we'll choose the third. This option will create a null object that infinitely traces the shape of this path. If we expand it, we can see the loop out expression, so we'll disable it so it only traces the path once. We can adjust the animation's timing by moving this keyframe. We select these 2 layers and expand the position. Now we link the position of the footprint composition to the null position so that it follows its movement. As you can see, if we modify the shape of the curve, the footprint composition always follows that path. We place this composition at the very top. The great thing about this graphic is that we can adapt it to our liking and needs in just a few seconds, making the animation very versatile. We can use it in our explainer videos, documentary-style videos, etc. With the text tool, we write any number here and center the anchor point. I'm going to use Arial in its regular font. It's important that the text is centered. If you don't see the paragraph options, go to Window greater than Paragraph. Let's make the number a little bigger. With the Control key pressed, we snap the text layer to this vertex of the graphic, make a copy of the number, and position them like this. The idea is to leave some space between the numbers and the vertical and horizontal lines, so we can then add our chart data. We'll add a slider control to this text layer. Hold down the Alt key and click on Source Text. Then link this pick whip to the slider. Again, hold down the Alt key and click on the clock in the slider and link this pick whip to the position of this composition. Look, this number shows me the minimum value on the x-axis. And if I go to the end of the animation, it shows me the maximum value on x. But what I want is for it to show me the values on the y-axis, the vertical axis. So here in the expression, we're going to change the 0 to the number 1. These numbers are indices, where 0 refers to the x-axis and 1 to the y-axis. And if the layer were 3D and had a z-axis, then there would be another index, which would be the number 2. Notice, now it's working correctly. Here it shows me the maximum value on y, and at the end of the animation, the minimum value. But I don't want the graph to show me the values on the axes, but rather the data I want to put on the vertical and horizontal axes of the graph. So we have to keep writing in the expression, but don't worry, it's going to be very simple. At the beginning of the expression, we write a p and the equals sign, and at the end, we put a semicolon. Now, on the line below, we write math.round, and inside the parentheses, we write linear. This warning appears because the expression is incomplete, so we need to write a couple more things. Inside the parentheses, we write the letter P, which refers to this entire section, so we don't have to write it all again. We add a comma and write the maximum value on the y-axis, in this case, 807. It's important to separate all these values with commas. Here we'll write 351, which is the minimum value, and if we want to display values from 1 to 100 on our graph, we'll write that here, 0 and 100. Okay, in this case, I'll put 100 here and 0 here. The linear function doesn't understand graphs or axes. All it does is transform a number from one range to another. It transforms a position in pixels into a value that makes sense for our graph. What I want to do now is make this number move up and down on the vertical axis based on the position of the footprint composition. So I'm going to expand the position and separate the dimensions of this text layer. And I'm going to link the y-axis value to the y-axis of this composition. There it is. Perfect. Now I'm going to create a shape like this, give it a color, and remove the stroke. This will be called box. I'll place it below the text layer and use the pick whip tool to parent it. If we press the Control key, we can precisely center this shape. I might move it a little further to the left to create more space here. We duplicate this shape and adjust it to this other number. And then use the pick whip tool to parent it. We have to do the same with this text layer, so we also add a slider. We hold down the Alt key and click on Source Text. Now, we parent this pick whip tool to the slider. I'm going to give it the same color. Again, we hold down the Alt key and click on the slider's clock, and we parent this pick whip tool to the position in this composition. Here, we can see how this index refers to the x-axis. Okay, we have to continue writing in the expression, but the process is the same as before. Here at the beginning, we write the letter P and the equal sign, which means that we are storing all this information in a variable, which in this case is the letter P. Here at the end, we write a semicolon, and on the line below, math.round and in parentheses, linear. Inside these parentheses, we write the letter P and a comma. Now we have to write the minimum and maximum values that the x-axis of this composition indicates. In this case, the minimum value is 527, and the maximum value is 1,200. If on the vertical axis, we are going to put numbers from 0 to 100, on the horizontal axis, we will put, for example, from 0 to 12. So we put them here inside the expression, and that's it. Well, we still have to link this text layer to the position of the footprint composition. So we separate the dimensions in the pick whip from the x value and link it to this other one. Now it works perfectly, and as I said before, the great thing about this chart is that we can customize it in just a few seconds. Let's add the axis data now. Here we write a 0 in white and center the anchor point. We'll position it roughly here. We open the rulers and place one in the center of this text layer. Now, if we want to display values from 0 to 100, We'll duplicate this text layer 10 times. We'll place this one up here. Hold down the Shift key to move it vertically. Now we'll select all the layers and arrange them vertically. If you don't see the alignment options, go to Window, Align, and click on that option. The only thing we need to do now is change the numbering. I'm going to change the font and make the numbers smaller. I'll also move them a little to the left. I like it that way. Notice how the number perfectly matches the data in our graph. We do the same for the horizontal line. Duplicate this number, change its color, and place it here. Now we go to the end of the animation and place a ruler in the center of this text layer. If we're going to put 12 values here, we need to make 12 copies of this layer. We place this copy here, and now we'll distribute them horizontally by clicking on this option. Now we just need to change the numbering. To make the timeline much cleaner, we'll hide all these layers by activating this option and by clicking on the shy icon. Let's customize the graph. If roughly 1 human year corresponds to 7 dog years, we'll leave it there. This is just an example. As you can see, it's super easy to customize this graph. We can also adjust the timing and smooth the keyframes to give the speed curve some shape, and everything will continue to work correctly. I'm going to trim the base of the graphic a bit and add some more details. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and the copy will be called matte. With the pen tool, I'm going to fill in this square again, remove the stroke, and add a fill. The color doesn't matter because the shape won't be visible, and it doesn't need to be perfect, just something like that. We make a rectangle like this and choose a color. Well, I'm going to remove the fill and add a stroke. We rename it, and with the pan behind tool and the control key pressed, we'll set the anchor point at this corner. We're left with just these two layers, and we adjust this one to the center of this composition. We move it along here below, and with the pick whip tool, we parent it to fingerprint so that it follows its movement. We also need to increase the stroke thickness so we can see it, but just a little. Now, we make this layer the alpha matte of this shape, so these lines will only be visible within the graphic. Starting with this composition, we're going to create another one and add a couple of effects. First, we'll center it a bit. And then we'll add the deep glow effect to give it some brightness. This is a paid plugin, but if you don't have it installed, you can use the glow effect that comes with After Effects by default. We'll lower the exposure quite a bit to about this amount. We'll add a fairly dark solid color that will serve as the background. Well, this depends on your personal preference. Now we'll create an adjustment layer and apply the noise effect to it. We'll disable this option so the noise is in black and white, and we'll set the value to around 3. And with that, our animation is finished and working perfectly. As we've seen, it's very easy to customize. As I always say, if you have any questions or there's anything you don't understand, write it in the comments and we'll sort it out. And if you like the tutorial, give it a thumbs up so I know. See you in the next video.